Hello, highly sensitive person, and welcome to this week's episode of the Highly Sensitive Club. I am so excited to have Steve Bennet on today. Steve is a fantastic coach. He has a very colorful past, lots of different businesses and cool things that he's done. But you may remember Steve's voice from one of my very early episodes when we did an intro swap. I am so thrilled to have you on the podcast today, Steve. And I'm going to toss it right to you to introduce yourself and what you're doing and tell us about you.
All right, sounds good. My name is Steve Bennet, and I am a coach. That's how we got to know each other through TCA. I started off doing podcasting because when I got sober, I started a sobriety podcast that really took off, focusing on queer stories of recovery. Over the period of my sobriety journey and coaching journey, I had my own personal weight loss transformation. At first, I was going to be a part-time personal trainer, and it quickly became that that's where I was thriving. And now I'm a full-time personal trainer and nutritionist.
I love this for you so much, Steve. Not only because you are a fantastic coach, and I know because I trained you and you are really good at what you do, but following your intuition and leading where life guides you and being open to new opportunities is one of your greatest strengths. For highly sensitive people, our bodies can be an aspect of our existence that a lot of us tend to ignore. Many of us live in our heads and we forget that we have nutritional needs or we need extra sleep as highly sensitive people. I'm very curious about that physical aspect, but first, I want to know when you found out that you were a highly sensitive person and any other type of neurospiciness that you have going on.
Sure. Well, I found out I was highly sensitive after my first review from you from our coaching, and I had to leave town for a week to deal with it. But in some ways, I know I've always been sensitive. I just had never heard of the term or been able to identify with highly sensitive person until talking with you about your niche and what you do. I've been sensitive my entire life. I was always the sweet boy who was always quiet. Teachers would be very cautious with the way that they give me feedback and come at me with kid gloves. And I would find myself sticking to safe situations because putting myself out there meant that I might get overly sensitive about something. So in some ways, I've always known I'm highly sensitive, but I didn't have a word for it until I got to know you better. And in addition to that, I would say in terms of neurospiciness, I also have ADHD. I had been diagnosed with it on and off throughout my life, where sometimes I was told by a doctor, yes, you have ADHD. Other times they're like, no, you're too smart and you do well in school and you seem to have your shit together. So you're good. But it was only when I started trying to run my own business on my own and I didn't have a manager saying, like, here's what your day looks like and here's what needs to get done, and trying to manage it all on my own. And then I'd pick up the phone, all of a sudden an hour would fly by and I was like, what did I do? I didn't even do anything. And then talking to a friend who specializes in ADHD therapy, I was like, yeah, that's definitely me fully. So when I started taking that is when I really was able to start focusing more on not only my business, but like on my day-to-day life.
I want to acknowledge for a minute what you said about getting a diagnosis and then not having a diagnosis. I've heard this called the curse of competency, that
Yes.
because you're high functioning and because you had success, suddenly your diagnosis was no longer relevant because you were so high functioning that it didn't seem to be getting in the way. But for you, it sounds like you do identify with ADHD and it has helped you make sense of the way you process things, in addition to being sensitive, so that you have language and you have tools to be able to get through your day and work with your business.
Yeah, I've really found between my ADHD and my high sensitivity, as well as even my alcoholism and addiction, the power of having a diagnosis to know what's wrong with me. Because I remember spending most of my life wondering, what's wrong? Did I miss the day in school where they taught you how to be a normal person? I was missing something that I felt like everyone else had figured out, but I felt like I was one or two steps behind and I was stuck on the why. Without having the why, it was very hard for me to be able to work on a solution. But in being able to embrace the fact that I'm highly sensitive, I was able to get coached through that and learn mindset tips and tricks to be able to take constructive criticism and feedback and things like that better. And with my ADHD diagnosis, I was able to understand better how my brain works and how to navigate my day-to-day life. I find like there's so much power in having a diagnosis because it also helps you realize that you're not alone, that there's hundreds or thousands of other people that are dealing with what you're dealing with with on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I know that's true for highly sensitive people, but I also have a lot of HSPs who also have ADHD or ADD. And just knowing that you're not alone is really powerful.
Yeah.
And for the record listener, Steve was already going out of town when he got his first mentor feedback.
Yes, it was scheduled and planned, but it also was the perfect timing.
And you have taken that feedback and turned it into so many beautiful things. I mean, really, you're a great coach, Steve, because I have seen you coach recently. You're a mentor coach now yourself, and you're a personal trainer. So I know you've soaked up all of these things, and your experience with hard critiques or hard criticism makes you more compassionate, and it makes you a better coach and a better trainer as well.
Thank you. I'd have to definitely agree. If it wasn't for the coaching, I don't know whether I would have been able to accomplish half of the things that I've done this past year if I wasn't being open to feedback.
You mentioned briefly that you were like, did I miss the day in school where people explain how to be a normal human? Having your ADHD diagnosis, knowing that you're highly sensitive, and having this new path, what does it look like to have this information and to have the support that you need with your neurospiciness?
I would say it's definitely been a life changer. Even talking with a friend earlier today, where we hadn't had a phone call in over a month, it was an hour and 40-minute phone call between the two of us catching each other up on all the changes in our life. In the past, it was trauma, 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 struggle, struggle. This was like, this cool thing happened, and then I did this, and then I did this awesome thing, and then this awesome thing just fell into my lap. My life has gone on like a higher trajectory than I ever would have imagined. I can't even comprehend 4 years ago looking to today what today would have looked like and that it could have turned out this well, because I spent so long in my head struggling about what if this happened, what if this happened, that it was very hard for me to take actions, to make pivots, to be open to try something new. Now I like trying something new as often as I can.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Steve, because I could sense a lot of other highly sensitive people's stories in your before picture of this, struggling with what's going on and why am I not normal? Hearing that you have so much personal power and agency around these things, and that you spend more time celebrating now than struggling and talking about trauma, that is incredible. I just want to acknowledge that for everyone, that this is possible for you, highly sensitive person.
Yes, it definitely is possible.
Now to the main event. Tell us about the personal training. And if you want to share more about the story of how you got there or anything that you want to acknowledge about that journey, please do.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I did get started in coaching as a podcast coach with my podcast. My podcast was something I started in early recovery. And while I was going through my early sobriety, I made so many positive life changes that everyone kind of looked the other way when one of the changes that I made in my life that wasn't so positive was replacing alcohol with candies and sugar and cookies and self-soothing with food instead of self-soothing with alcohol. So while everyone's talking about how great my life is and that it's so awesome that I'm not burning my life to the ground every single night now, no one was acknowledging the fact that over my first 2.5 years of recovery, I gained over 100 pounds. I got to the point where I was over 300 pounds. And once I hit the 300, I was like, I'm not even weighing myself anymore because I didn't want to see it or look at it. It was my eye opener as my doctor was starting to put me on prescriptions for my blood pressure and my cholesterol and talking to me about obesity. And I was like, excuse me? She's like, no, it's not an insult. You're medically obese. And I didn't know what to do about it. The summer before I joined TCA, I had an interview because of my sobriety and podcasting journey. I had the opportunity to interview Marc Jacobs, the fashion designer in New York City. So the 3 months leading up to it, I kept saying, I'll start eating healthy and working out next week. I'll start doing it next week. I'll start doing it next week. And it never happened. And I had this awesome experience. But when I look back at the pictures, I couldn't even recognize myself. I wasn't feeling like my outsides were looking like how I felt on the inside now that I was living sober and learning tools to cope with day-to-day life. And that was an eye-opener where I knew I had a problem with emotional eating and I knew I needed to find a solution, but I wasn't really sure what that could look like because I was terrified of gym culture, being very loud and proud and queer. A lot of gym culture is very heteronormative, very conservative. And so I felt afraid of even going to the gym or starting fitness. And in terms of nutrition, there's so much advice out there that I was overwhelmed by all the buzz, especially when I couldn't really focus on any one thing at a time, that I just tuned it all out because I was like, well, do I do this or do I do this or try this diet or do this or do that? That I just didn't do anything and I wasn't taking action. It was only when I enrolled in TCA, Thriving Coach Academy, where through coaching and going through all of the tools that they have us practice ourselves before we start practicing with other people and doing things like making my wheel of life and doing a visioning exercise and looking at where I wanted my life to be, that I realized that no matter how scary it was starting my fitness journey, that I didn't have any other option at that point for me. It was time. I remember the first couple times going to the gym, I was like so insecure about anything because all the machines and all the people looked so intimidating that I would sneak in and go to the one cardio machine in the corner that was my elliptical and just do the elliptical for half an hour and occasionally like throw in the one ab machine that I knew how to do if I was feeling brave. Other than that, it was people watching in amazement of like, how are all these people doing it? How do they seem to know everything? I was so amazed by it, but also so intimidated by it that that was my routine for a while. And I was so body insecure as well that even though they had a sauna at the gym, I ended up paying for a private infrared sauna somewhere else in town that I can do the sauna afterwards for recovery because I didn't want to be around other people. It was only when, again, taking the advice and lessons that I learned from TCA that I also joined a local queer kickball league in town that I've met someone who became a friend that worked out at the gym. He began working out with me and showing me what he knows. And over that time, when you're spending 2 to 3 hours a week with someone working out, you're only lifting so much. It's when you're in between resting that you're talking and getting to know each other better. He quickly became my gym best friend. And so that was a game changer for me. Meanwhile, because I had a successful podcast, I decided to be a podcasting coach. But it turns out that making my own show about queer recovery was a lot more fun than producing and editing people's shows about water purification or real estate. I wasn't having the success that I wanted to there, but it also felt like something wasn't right. Like I shouldn't be getting ready to work and dreading the work that I have to be doing. Originally, the idea was get my personal training certification so that I can get a part-time job at a gym like the one that I worked at. So I got through the course and learned so much. And I was surprised at how much biology and science was involved with it. And then I started applying around town and was bombarded with anywhere from microaggressions to flat out laughs in my face like, no, bro, that I wouldn't fit in, that I'd have to tone it down, that they don't think I would fit the company culture. All because at the time I had blue hair, I believe it was. And when I work out, I wear my short shorts that make me feel good. And I wear bright colors because I'm a bright, colorful person. Because of all of that. And also at the time I had a hyphenated last name, which also kind of gave away this person is gay. Even the one gym in town who advertised in local queer places as being friendly is the one that was like, we don't think you'll fit our company culture. So I was surprised. Meanwhile, I post on social media about not only my work stuff, but also my personal journey. And I finally said, I'll meet you wherever you are and let's work out one-on-one. Overnight, I had 8 clients when it took me a year to get my 2 podcasting clients. So I was like, oh, there's something here. My story of feeling insecure at the gym and shy and not fitting in with normal gym culture resonated with a lot of people. And they liked the idea of having that private one-on-one training that wasn't in a giant box gym, but was in a park or at their house or in my garage. It was successful. So I said, let's just go with it. Over the coming months, it continued to grow. And then in January, I had the opportunity to compete on the Blox, which is a reality startup series for business entrepreneurs, where I was flown out to Kansas City and spent a week in a conference where every morning they'd go over different tips and tricks, kind of like a mastermind class of how to grow your business. And in the afternoon, we'd be tested on it with public speaking and pop quizzes and challenges, applying it to our business. That's when I really developed and realized this is something that isn't just for me and a small group of people in my area, but something that has legs that can grow, that people need to hear about, making fitness fun and accessible, even if you're gym shy for whatever reason. When I came home, I was really determined to continue to grow. So shortly after that is when I got my nutritionist certification. And that helped because as much as working out was great, I wasn't seeing the same kind of results as other people were, as you might expect, because I still was emotionally eating, learning about nutrition and becoming a nutritionist and learning how to eat in manageable ways while finding foods that I like and when to eat and when not to eat, but not to feel bad about eating. That was the game changer where I started making small adjustments in my nutritional habits here and there. I set goals for myself where for the first week, it was like swapping regular potatoes for sweet potatoes. A couple weeks later, I tried something else. But I didn't want to try and change everything overnight because that doesn't work. Diets don't work. Restrictive eating doesn't work. You want to make lifestyle changes that are sustainable where you're not sending your body into shock. By doing that, that's when all of a sudden I started to feel really good about myself because I was fueling my body with healthier foods and avoiding that emotional eating. And that's led to where I am today, where now I'm able to not only help do the personal training one-on-one with people, but I'm also nutrition coaching with people virtually wherever they are.
There is so much to unpack here. I have so many questions.
Yes.
First, thank you for sharing all of that because I think that story is very relatable. I can see why your clients are so drawn to you because I've had that gym anxiety at some point. I like how you called it gym shyness. I know exactly what you mean. What was the leap that helped you get over the hurdle of your own gym shyness to go to the gym? You mentioned going through coach training, you were examining your thoughts. What was that defining moment that helped you make the switch where you were like, I'm going to the gym today?
It was visioning where I wanted to be in my life a year from now and realized that everything that I had envisioned for myself included me being healthy. I wasn't writing on the list like, and I'm still on my high cholesterol medication, and I'm still 300 plus pounds. I was not only living a good life, but I was feeling good about myself inside and outside. I realized that if I want this 1 year visioning exercise to have any shot at coming true, now is the time. Just do the thing and try it. And so I did. I joined the gym one morning before I went to work. I even remember making sure that I had to be at work at a certain time so that if they tried to get me to work out the day that I signed up, that I would be like, oh, sorry, I can't. I'm all dressed for work. I gotta go. But I signed up, and once I put that money down, even though it was a small amount relatively, it was enough for me to say, okay, well, now that I'm paying for a gym membership, I have to go. And the first few days were hard, but I remember what really was the game changer was I went probably 3 or 4 days in a row, and then I missed a day because I just wasn't feeling it, but I managed to luckily bring myself back the next day. Tracy, the girl at the front desk, asked me where I was the day before because she missed me. Realizing that even though I'm like running and scanning my card and hiding in the corner by a treadmill, that this one person noticed that I was there and also noticed when I wasn't there and was willing to, politely and friendly with love, call me out on it. I was like, I better not let down Tracy. So at that point, it wasn't just for my own journey, but it was so that this one person at the gym who recognized me and knew I missed a day would know that it's not like I just dropped off the face of the earth. I think that's what really stuck was even with how small I'm trying to make myself in the gym, not only am I starting to make a change for myself, but other people will notice me and hold me accountable.
You're far too noticeable to be ignored, Steve.
I know I spent way too long trying to blend in. That's one thing I've gotten past over the past couple of years. Now you'll see me like bop into my music, dancing around in my little short shorts and neon shirts, and I don't care what anyone else around the gym thinks, but that certainly wasn't how it started. It's something that happened one day at a time, getting a little more comfortable and overcoming this fear and that fear over time.
I wanted to celebrate what you shared because what I heard you say was that it wasn't an all or nothing, like you mentioned with
Mhm.
nutrition. This was you making tiny shifts along the way that helped you get to where you are. The first shift was envisioning yourself and then leaning into the vision. The second shift was just going to the gym and signing up. And you even prepared in your work clothes, which is such a highly sensitive person thing to do. I'm going to come up with an excuse in advance so that they can't rope me in today. I can't get started because I have to go to work. I'm wearing my clothes. See, I'm wearing my clothes.
Very
Then
much.
you showed up and did the first thing you were comfortable with. Then you had an accountability partner you didn't even expect you were going to have. It was really all those tiny shifts along the way because that's how change really happens. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, no problem.
Moving on to our next part, I don't even know how to respond to all of those microaggressions and people telling you that you don't belong in the gym culture. That's the kind of stuff that keeps people out of the gym, which is terrible for business, first of all, but
Mhm.
just not great for connection and humanity. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. I'm sure it's not the first time and it probably won't be the last.
Yeah.
And you're breaking the cycle now because you get to show up so loud and bright and proud and help other people all over the country and the world now.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what did it for me, where all of a sudden I felt glad that all of that happened because the week that I was applying and going to interviews and dropping off my business card, I felt so bad being highly sensitive and being rejected time after time after time. But it was only when I realized that if I got a job at the gym, I would have continued to try and be someone I'm not, and I would have tried to fit into their company culture. And they were right. I wouldn't have fit into their company culture, and I would have been miserable, or at least not be able to thrive the way that I am now. I'm able to reach people who are on the fence and who are just getting started or restarted and who wouldn't dare step foot in a gym and be able to help people like myself because what really changed for me in the gym after finding that accountability partner was having someone who I considered a best friend at the gym. I love that I can be someone's best friend at the gym for all my clients and that they are able to feel affirmed through the workout rather than feel bad about themselves.
Your bright, shiny nature is actually what makes you so good at what you do. And it sounds like that's what draws people to you as well. They don't know what they're missing because you are the gem here. And clearly, everybody else sees that.
Yes, thank
So
you.
you get the last laugh.
I do. I mean, now I have my own business where I'm making more of a profit off of my clients than if I was in a gym and they were taking 50% like some nasty pimp.
Oh, well said. Yes. Your greatest asset, Steve, is being exactly who you are, highly sensitive, ADHD, and colorful and attention grabbing. And it's what connects people to you. The things that we think are sometimes our greatest obstacles are frequently our greatest strengths and the things that connect us. And now you're making so much money than you would have made otherwise. They are
Yeah.
missing out.
Yes. And I feel good
So,
about the work that I'm doing, and I love going to work. And if I'm having a bad day, but then I have a client, I'm excited for the client, and then I feel amazing after the workout. It's in some ways almost as good for me as it is good for them because we're both thriving off of the relationship and bouncing off of each other.
oh, I so hear that because that is exactly how I feel about coaching. Even if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to feel so much better after our session 100%.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, even with my online coaching now with the mentoring and webinars and stuff.
The next part of the story is the business competition. What happened? Do you have the results?
I do have the results, although we're supposed to keep it quiet until the show airs, which is taking way longer than I thought it would. This was recorded in January of 2025. I was gone for a week and they were told that it should be out by late summer. I'm on season 20 of the show and they just finished airing season 17. So now we're looking at maybe early 2026 that it will air. It's going to be very interesting not only to see how my business has changed, but also how my personal life and like my little introductory story has changed because I've gone through a lot of personal changes recently as well. It'll be wild watching it, having so much space between me and when I recorded it. But while I can't say how well I did, I can say that the biggest concern was that I wouldn't be noticed in terms of getting camera time and being able to talk about my story. And I know for a fact I'm definitely going to be including the show for at least doing well enough to be able to get a focus.
Awesome. Ooh, I don't follow many reality shows, but I know that frequently people have arcs and they have stories. So clearly your bright shininess was attractive enough to keep you going.
Yes, it definitely helped going in and having my girlfriend beforehand with her Cricut brand, all of my dress shirts with the GBF Fitness logo, and I had matching shoes that stood out, and I had blue hair at the time. So I definitely stood out visually with the camera. The notebook that I was taking my notes in was like pink and fuzzy and very ADHD. Then the first challenge that they had us in, I think I can say, like the first of the 5 days, the challenge was on branding, which I know my brand because my brand is me. And thanks to all my life coaching that I've received and given over the years, I know myself very well. When you go up and you do a 5 minute business presentation, you have half the audience crying. You're like, yeah, I did well. It was very validating because I was very insecure going into a competition to receiving feedback, period, but also to be coming with a very queer theme and business model. It was something that I was worried about. People would say, oh, well, you need to make it open to everyone and train everyone and work out with the gym bro and do all of this. But everyone, even people who didn't understand at first and would ask me a question like, why do queer people need a queer personal trainer? Talking about my experience and having them say, oh, that's why. That makes perfect sense. They just might not have thought of that beforehand. It was very validating hearing from all these other successful entrepreneurs that were also in growth mode that I am exactly where I should be and just keep going. And this time, don't pivot because I'm on the right path now. This felt really good. And I was able to make connections there that have continued to help me grow. The person I was on the phone with this morning for an hour and 45 minutes was a contestant of the show. And we still talk at least every month and we snap every couple days. One of the people that I met there is now my accountability coach. We have biweekly check-ins to make sure that my business is growing the way that I want it to and that I don't have an ADHD moment where I just veer off because something sparkly happened and that sounds good, so let's try this and ignore the business plan that I made for myself. I've made some amazing connections there that really help provide not only professional accountability, but also having someone to talk to about your business that's also an entrepreneur has been a game changer because I'm so used to working in communities where I have a whole staff of coworkers that are both peers and supervisors and people working under me that it felt lonely that first year as a podcast coach where I felt like I was a man on an island who didn't have anyone to talk with and no one could empathize with the struggles that I was having or really celebrate the successes when I had them. Now I have this entire network of amazing people that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't take a risk. When I saw the Facebook ad about want to be on TV and grow your business, click yes and click apply and go through that process, just being as authentic as I can be. It was terrifying, but at the same time, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
I love hearing more about that story. I will include a link to the show in the show notes so that people can follow it. And when your season does finally come up, we can watch it.
Yeah, it definitely is designed for entrepreneurs, and you can find a lot of great business advice watching the show. If you're not an entrepreneur or interested in business, it's not the easiest watch. At the same time, I also, when the episode does come out, I'll make sure to use all my podcasting editing skills to make some sort of like Steve master mix where I cut out everyone else's nonsense and just have it be all about me.
That's really what we care about. We want it to be the Steve Show.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Now that we're mostly caught up on all of the questions that I wanted to ask you about, I'm curious at this point what the impact has been on getting fit, getting comfortable at the gym, and getting your nutrition aligned with your exercise and your movement. How do you feel now, having done all of that?
I feel unstoppable. I feel like anything that I want to do, I can do. It's just a matter of putting in the hard work and getting over the fears. I was so paralyzed by fear before I started my weight loss and coaching and business journey that I was drinking myself into oblivion over it. And once I started raw dogging reality, it was like, okay, now how can I move forward? I felt like I didn't have the school skills or like the tool set to be able to accomplish what I needed to. But by investing in myself and by taking chances, I've been able to develop not only this entire skill set in my mind that I can call on at any time that I need assistance, but I also have peers from all over the place between my podcast and TCA and the Blox now that even though they're not always in my backyard, they're always a phone call or a text or a Zoom away. Connection has been one of the best things that's been the biggest game changer. I feel connected to other people now and not as alone. That's helped me achieve all of my goals, whether they be fitness related, nutrition related, being able to talk to other people about their struggles with food and being able to say, I've been there rather than, oh, I've always eaten healthy and I'll just teach you what I always have done forever. I love a bag of sour candy mix and things like that. But there's treat meals and then there's eating for feelings, and trying to avoid the eating for feelings was like the biggest game changer for me with my nutrition.
What is the power of being in your body and feeling good in your body for being queer and being neurospicy?
I would say I like myself now. Between my neurospiciness as well as my sexuality, I always felt like something was wrong or something was off. But to know that I am the way that I am and that I was born one way, I was born both ways actually, and that there's nothing wrong with either one, and that I can use both of them as a superpower rather than a handicap, that's been so empowering. Now I feel connected to my body where I would disassociate from my body in the past, both like with eating, but also through like just playing video games for hours on end. Not that I still don't enjoy some game time now and then, but when your Nintendo Switch says like you played 80 hours this week, you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't in the real world that week. So knowing that I can do things in moderation that I still enjoy and have fun without disassociating and shutting down and hiding from people, places, and things, I can connect with people, places, and things not by trying to be someone I'm not, which is what I spent most of my life doing, but that I connect with them better when I'm being my authentic self and saying, this is me, and not trying to show like the Facebook version where everything's perfect, but talk about the hard stuff that I've been through. Feeling good in my body. I can actually dance a little bit. I was at the Kesha concert a couple of weeks ago and I was like, oh, okay, I know the dance that she's doing. I was able to dance along. And I always had the story that I couldn't dance, but I think it's because I was so disconnected from my body that my body couldn't physically move that way that I wanted to. And nothing was hard where I had to be fit to do it. But it was that like I feel like I'm in my body and that my mind and my body are in alignment right now and that they're both working together towards the same goal. And there's not that disconnect that there used to be.
Ooh, what I'm hearing is that your body and your mind and heart are in a good cycle now, where
Yes.
you wanted to feel your emotions and not avoid them anymore and not go to alcohol or sugar or video games or any other distraction or coping mechanism. You really wanted to feel them. And that allowed you to get into your body. And the more you're in your body, the more comfortable you feel, then you have the ability to deal with the emotions even better. You're just in this positive wheel now. And that sounds really incredible.
Yeah, it's really cool, and it's definitely gotten easier to do it as I got used to doing it. But I still give so much credit to the person who isn't there yet and is just starting their journey, because that for me was the hard part. It wasn't I go to the gym week after week trying to hit new personal records of what I can push. That's like not half as hard or a fraction as hard as it was that first week just showing up at the gym and telling myself I'll give myself a gold medal if I make it an hour and a silver medal if I make a half an hour and a bronze medal for just showing up and trying to force myself in with rewards to be able to make it. That was the hard part. When my clients come and get started with me, their first month is the hard part, showing up to every nutrition coaching or showing up to every personal training session. Once they're 6 months in, those habits have been formed and that change is actively happening. But it's that those first few steps that are the most challenging. So when I see people taking those first two steps, that's who I'm most wowed by and impressed by.
Thank you so much for that acknowledgement because I can tell a lot of people are going to get hope from that and they're going to have permission to go ahead and do it, knowing that the first part is the hard part.
Yeah, it is. It gets easier as you go on. There's different challenges, but they're not half as challenging, especially emotionally and mentally as they were at first. Sometimes it's like, all right, do I need to go that heavy this week? But that's nothing compared to, oh my God, am I going to get hate crimed for, bumping into the wrong person at the gym? Coming over those fears, that was the hard part.
What would you say to someone who is thinking, all of this sounds great for you, but how do I even get started? This is completely overwhelming. What would you say to that person?
I would say just pick one thing that you feel not necessarily comfortable, but one thing to challenge yourself to do. For me, it was go to the gym and do cardio. I didn't have any expectations to do anything else in the gym, but I knew that I could walk or do my little power elliptical for a bit. So just start with the one change. That's how I got started. That's how most people get started is you make one small change and then stick with that. When that becomes comfortable, then try something else that makes you uncomfortable. Try being uncomfortable a little bit at a time because too much and you're going to get overwhelmed, especially being highly sensitive. But making that one small change, whether it is walking around the neighborhood one lap a day or going to the gym to do the elliptical, or if it's for nutrition, swapping one unhealthy food that you like for a healthy food and just starting with that one change as that becomes less of a challenge, then continue to challenge yourself in new ways. That's how I've made, and that's how most of the people I'm working with are able to make those sustainable differences in their life, not from changing your life overnight and all of a sudden changing your day. So you spend 2 hours in the gym powerlifting, followed by an hour of cardio, and you only eat protein shakes. That's not going to be a sustainable change for anyone. It's taking those small steps one at a time, even when you're scared.
I love that you paint such a vivid picture of what doesn't work versus what is going to work because going to the gym and weightlifting and doing cardio for an hour and then only eating protein shakes, I've seen people do that. I think we've all seen people do that. We also
Mm-hmm.
know that that's not effective for the majority of people.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not for this one, at least.
How do you emotionally regulate now? Is the exercise enough that it helps you feel the emotions and you feel good in general? Or do you have something else that you do in addition to exercise and nutrition to work through those emotions you were avoiding before?
Exercise has been a huge part. I definitely get my endorphin high after a workout where I feel better about the world. And if I miss the gym for a day or two because life happens, I make sure I get back because I don't feel as good when I don't go. But you also can't live at the gym. And for a while there, I actually realized I was increasing my time at the gym to try and increase that high and putting other things aside. You can get a powerful workout in 1 hour. It doesn't have to be longer at that point. You're just being a workout junkie. There are other ways that I can cope as well. I would say the biggest has been connection. At first, in my recovery, and then even professionally, reaching out to peers, the phone felt so heavy at times. I was always afraid, like, if I text this person, am I going to be bothering them? Am I going to be interrupting their day? Do they even want to hear from me? But now, even if I have those thoughts still sometimes, I still send the text or make the phone call anyway, knowing that they'll reply when they can. If I leave a voicemail, they'll call me back when they can. Probably with, why did you leave a voicemail? It's 2025. Reaching out to people and connecting with other people is the biggest thing because being highly sensitive, I'm very prone to live in my own head. And I am the star of my own story, and I am the only one in the world dealing with all these problems and only one in the world dealing with all these emotions. And woe is me because this one awful thing happened to me. But when that awful thing is that, like, I stub my toe and then I call a friend who's like, my wife just left me. All of a sudden, my problems don't feel as big. Other people are dealing with a lot of other things in their day to day life, and that might be one extreme, but it just goes to show that taking myself out of my brain rather than just shutting down and disassociating, but by connecting with another person has been probably my biggest game changer to help regulate my emotions because it stops that cycle and spiral in my own head that just can keep going and getting deeper and sadder and angstier. I call someone else, and 10, 15 minutes later, I'm snapped out of it.
I hear you about being trapped in your head and thinking you're the only one in the whole world that feels that way. I think we
Yeah.
can all relate to that. This is the perfect segue because connection is a huge part of your business. It's a huge part of the way that you help your clients. So, if someone wants to connect with you and work with you, what do they do?
My website is www.gymbestfriend.com, where there's all the information on my personal training, and it's going to soon have the nutrition side of things as well. And then I'm on Facebook. I do my personal account more than anything. So on my Facebook is Steve Bennet. It's two N's and one T, which makes it very easy to find me. On Instagram, I'm at just Steve SRQ.
Amazing. So, you are taking clients, I take it.
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Virtual and in person.
Yes, both.
Awesome. And do you have anything that you want to share or promote with us today?
I would say even if you're not ready to get working with me right now, fill out the information on my website. When you provide your name, phone number, and email address, you'll get 5 tips and tricks for nutrition confidence. I call it fueling your confidence. I'm going to have that giveaway that you can sign up for on my website, but then I'm going to be doing free webinars on a monthly basis. I just had my first one last night. For an hour, we had about 10 people on, like, talking about their nutrition mindset and overcoming barriers. I'll be continuing that series over the coming months. So even if you're not ready to, like, reach out and do one-on-one coaching or support, you can join the free events that I'm going to be hosting online every couple months.
Excellent. And what is one thing that you would like to leave our listener with today before we hop off?
Summarizing it all, I would say that it's that you're not alone and that you can make a change one step at a time.
100%. That is the best way to make a change. Thank you so much, Steve Bennet, for being on Highly Sensitive Club today.
Yep.
I am so thrilled. This conversation made me laugh. I was over here trying not to make a bunch of noise and make sound over you. So thank you for sharing your heart and your humor with us. I am sure your story inspired a lot of people today, and I am so excited to share this with my highly sensitive people.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Steph. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you for listening this week, highly sensitive person, and we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening. If you're ready to take what you learned today to the next level, head over to Stephanie Linn, that's LINN.com, and book a consultation call to get started. I can't wait to see you there, my dear HSP.